Hello. Tonight, we drift far back into a time when the word doctor meant something very different than it does today. No white coats, no sterile rooms, no miraculous cures. Instead, the title belonged to men who were part healer, part mystic, and mostly guesswork. Ritual and superstition weighed heavier than science, and survival was never guaranteed. Not for the patients, and certainly not for the doctors. You might imagine yourself standing tall, calm, and wise. A man of knowledge, confident and sure. But the truth is far less romantic. You wouldn't last a single day as a medieval doctor. And tonight, by the time this night's story ends, you'll understand why. Your day begins before the sun rises, in a small hut made of wood and stone, smelling of damp earth, herbs, and the lingering stench of sickness. No linens, no running water, no soap. Your hands are already stained, not from skill, but from the blood and grime of previous patients. You light a flickering candle, its faint glow dancing over the cracked walls and worn tools. A dull blade, a wooden bowl chipped with age, and bundles of dried herbs. These are your instruments. There is no knowledge of germs, no understanding of infection. The world beyond your hut is silent, but inside, the faint sound of wheezing and coughing reminds you that death is near. Your mind clings to the teachings of humoral theory, the belief that the body contains for humors blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Disease is simply an imbalance of these fluids. The solution: to restore balance, often by draining the body of blood, or by purging with herbs and potions that taste bitter and strange. Every treatment is a gamble, every patient a chance to cheat death or join it. The door creaks open, and a woman rushes in, carrying her son in her arms. He is pale as ash, his breath shallow and uneven. Dark spots blot his skin like spilled ink. The mother's eyes are wide with fear, clutching her child close. You recognize the signs, a sickness that will sweep through villages and leave empty homes behind. But you do not call it plague. To you, it is corruption of the humors, a punishment from God, or a curse from evil spirits. You tie a strip of rough cloth tightly around the boy's arm to make his veins stand out. With a steady hand, you press your blade to the skin and slice. Dark blood wells into the bowl, pooling and trembling. The boy's eyes flutter. He gasps and then moans. You hum an old Latin prayer you barely remember. Then, with no hope but a routine, you hand the mother a dried toad wrapped in linen, telling her to place it under the boy's pillow, a charm to draw the sickness away. Outside, more villagers line up. One limps heavily, a deep wound festering on his leg, flies buzzing around the raw skin. Another clutches a rag to her face, hiding blackened teeth and swollen gums. You wipe your hands with vinegar, not because it cleans, but because it is tradition. You say a prayer under your breath, hoping your faith will be stronger than your tools. The hours stretch on. The candle burns low. You grind herbs into powders, mix pungent brews, and repeat the rituals taught by your elders. You offer comfort when you cannot heal. You whisper promises you cannot keep. Pain and sickness surround you like a thick fog. Your clothes stick to your back with sweat. The boy from the morning fades away, his breath finally stilled. You wrap his small body in a coarse cloth and place it gently on a pile of straw. Another candle is lit, another prayer offered. Your heart is heavy, but you must prepare for the next knock on the door. Because in this world, the title of doctor means not mastery over death, but its constant companion. The morning light filters weakly through cracks in the wooden walls, casting thin beams on worn tools and faded herbs hanging from the rafters. Your body aches from restless sleep on the cold floor, but there is no time for rest. The day is already filling with new sufferers. A woman limps inside, her leg swollen grotesquely, a dark wound oozing thick pus. Flies swarm hungrily, drawn to the stench of decay. She barely manages to speak before collapsing onto the dirt floor. You steel yourself, knowing this wound could mean death, or worse, a slow march toward it. Without anesthesia, you must work quickly. Your blade, dulled from years of use, scrapes away the dead flesh, sending stinging pain coursing through her exposed nerves. She cries out, clutching the dirt beneath her. You pour vinegar into the wound. Its acrid bite a cruel comfort against infection. Her eyes plead, but your knowledge is limited. You are a man armed with hope and ritual, not science. Next, you turn to grind dried herbs, rosemary, wormwood, and sazintu, a coarse paste. Mixed with sour wine, you apply the bitter mixture to her wound. You instruct her to return daily for treatment, knowing full well that many who come with such injuries never leave alive. The air hangs heavy, thick, with the smell of herbs, sweat, and death. Outside, villagers whisper of the plague's advance, their faces etched with fear. You have already lost count of those who have passed since dawn. Soon, a thin man arrives, coughing violently. His chest heaves with each breath, as if blades pierce his lungs. Tuberculosis, though you know it only as a wasting sickness, ravages him. You offer a bowl of thick broth, spiced with whatever herbs you can spare, and advise rest and prayers. You watch helplessly as his strength ebbs away. As the day wears on, the relentless toll of suffering and death gnaws at your spirit. You are a healer, mourner, and reluctant witness to a world where death walks alongside every breath. Your hands, raw and trembling, tend wounds that never heal, faces that never brighten. The sun sinks low, but your work is far from done. Fevered patients stumble in, seeking miracles where none exist. The weight of their desperation presses down like a stone on your chest. You light candles, whisper incantations, and prepare for the long night ahead. A night filled with whispered prayers, sharp knives, and the quiet despair of a man trying to hold back the dark. The night deepens and wraps itself around the village like a shroud. Outside, the wind moans through the twisted branches of gnarled trees, carrying the faintest echo of distant bells tolling for the dead. Inside your small, crowded hut, the air is thick with the mingled scents of burning tallow, herbs, and the unmistakable stench of sickness. A sudden tap at the door breaks the heavy silence. You open it to find a figure cloaked in a heavy robe, face obscured beneath a mask shaped like a long, curved bird's beak. The infamous plague doctor, his eyes, barely visible through glass lenses, hold the same weary resignation you feel deep in your bones. The mask's beak is packed tight with aromatic herbs, lavender, rosemary, and cloves believed to cleanse the foul air and protect against the invisible poison that stalks the streets. But even the herbs and mask can only do so much. You know this as well as he does. Together, you move through the village, entering the darkened homes where sickness waits patiently for its next victim. The walls are thick with smoke from burning juniper and sage, attempts to purify the cursed air. But the plague is relentless. Inside one cottage, a woman lies motionless on a straw mattress, her skin mottled with dark blotches. Her breathing is shallow, a faint rasp that seems barely human. Her family hovers near, faces etched with despair and fear. You place a cool hand on her forehead, burning hot, a fever you cannot fight. You apply poultices made from crushed herbs and oils, whispering prayers and incantations, hoping that faith will carry more weight than medicine. But you know, in your heart, it may be too late. The plague doctor moves silently, checking wounds and nodding solemnly. His presence is both feared and needed, a symbol of death as closeness and a beacon of last hope. He performs his rituals with practiced precision, lighting incense and using a small bell to ward off evil spirits. As the hours crawl by, the two of you visit home after home, witnessing the slow march of suffering. A child convulses violently, seized by fever and spasms. An old man's breath rattles in his chest. Each inhale, a struggle. The cries and whispers fill the night, a haunting chorus of pain and loss. You clean your blade repeatedly, dipping it into vinegar and ash, though you know the practice is no defense against the unseen enemy. Your hands tremble, not from fear, but exhaustion, physical, mental, and spiritual. Despite your best efforts, many will not survive the night. You bury the dead in shallow graves beneath the cold earth, marking each with a rough cross. The village grows quieter, the living too afraid or too weak to come out. You wonder how many more will fall before the dawn. How many lives will slip through your fingers, powerless to stop the darkness. For all your rituals, your knowledge, your prayers, you are little more than a man clinging to hope in a world ruled by death. And so the night stretches on, endless and unforgiving, until finally, when the first pale light seeps into the sky, you collapse onto the floor, your body spent, your spirit heavy. The pale light of dawn creeps slowly through cracks in the wooden walls, casting a cold gray glow over the worn floorboards. Your body aches from hours of unbroken toil, from cutting, grinding, tending, and watching. The night's shadows linger in the corners, heavy with the weight of lost lives and unanswered prayers. As the village slowly awakens, the silence is deeper now. Fewer footsteps on the muddy paths, fewer voices to carry the news of death and despair. The plague has claimed its toll, and the survivors move like ghosts, haunted by what they have seen. You sit alone in your hut, surrounded by empty bowls, cracked tools, and the fading scent of herbs. Your hands tremble, not from weariness alone, but from the knowing realization that your knowledge, your faith, and your will are not enough. You think of the boy from the morning, the one you tried to save with bleeding and toads, now cold and still beneath straw and linen. You think of the woman with the festering wound, the coughing man, the children and elders you could not heal. Each face is a silent accusation, a reminder of your limitations. In this world, being a doctor means living with failure, a constant companion, heavier than any burden. The science of your day is a patchwork of old beliefs, superstition, and half-truths. You are not a master of life and death. You are a man trying to hold back the tide. Outside, the village slowly stirs, but the air remains thick with grief and fear. The plague has changed everything. And yet, despite the darkness, life continues. New faces will appear at your door. New wounds will bleed. And you, the doctor, will rise again to face the endless cycle. Because in a world ruled by death and ignorance, survival is the most fragile victory of all.